Are you trapped in the Bandleaders paradox where the reward for getting more gigs is just more work? I've been there. My own 9-piece event band was stuck at about 70 gigs a year with 2 of us drowning in admin. So I built a system so effective it scaled us to over 380 gigs a year while reducing our workload. And that exact system now powers thousands of musicians and bands worldwide. And in this video, I'm giving you the blueprint to that system so that you too can harness what I like to call the 4-hour gig week. But before we dive into the how, I need to share the single most important lesson that unlocks everything else. And it's this: your biggest barrier is that you see your job as a series of disconnected tasks when in reality, it's a single interconnected system. Right now, you might think your job is more of a master juggler, frantically keeping a dozen balls in the air. An email here, a text to a musician there, an invoice to create, a review to chase. It's exhausting and it's not scalable. But what if I told you your real job is to be more of an architect, to design one single system where each part is automated, where the lead form feeds the contract and the musicians receive gig details in real time, and you receive money and send musician payouts while you sleep, and the completed gig launches the review request. When you make that mental shift from juggler to architect, the 4-hour gig week becomes possible. So how do we build this machine? Well, let's start with the name. Now, why do I call it the 4-hour gig week? Well, the 4-hour gig week isn't about gigging 4 hours a week total. I wish. Well, maybe not. I kind of enjoy gigging, but it's the name I gave to this system I built to change how I manage my admin time around all my gigs. So here's what that means. Think about the old way of doing things, okay? For every single gig you book, you probably spend, let's say, 3 to 5 hours on admin, right? You've got the back and forth emails, creating the quote, writing the contract, scheduling the band, sending reminders, chasing the final payment, all of that. Now, if you book 3 gigs a month, let's just say, you've just signed yourself up for 10 to 15 hours of admin work, right? Your workload multiplies with every success, which is a recipe for burnout. So the 4-hour gig week is a system where you spend a maximum of 4 hours per week on all your administrative tasks combined, no matter how many gigs you're juggling. So it's about shifting from doing manual work per gig to simply managing a system. And instead of constantly writing new emails, you spend 30 minutes a week, let's say, tweaking your templates, right? Instead of manually texting 8 musicians, you spend 2 minutes clicking the autobook button. Instead of building a new contract from scratch, you spend 60 seconds generating one automatically. So the goal is to get all these chaotic, time-sucking tasks running on autopilot, so you only have to spend a few hours a week overseeing the machine. And that's how you decouple your time from your gig volume and actually get your life back. Does that make more sense? So it's less of a literal work schedule and more of a philosophy for automating your business. Now, it sounds crazy, but this is actually based on some real world math. So I looked at one of the busiest bands that I know. This is a wedding band in New York. They're doing around 300 gigs a year. And with a system like the one I'm about to show you, their admin time per gig will likely come out to about 15 to 30 minutes. So let's do the math. 300 gigs times 30 minutes of admin is about 150 hours a year. Divide that by 52 weeks and you get just under 3 hours of admin work per week. So we'll round that up to 4 just to be safe, and suddenly you're running a massive music business in the time most people spend watching Netflix. That's the power of a killer system. And that system is built on a philosophy actually that I learned from 2 business legends. I highly recommend you check these guys out, David Allen and Tim Ferriss. In David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, that taught me that you need a container to capture all these chaotic details of your business so that your brain can be free to create music. You can't trust your brain to just remember all this stuff. That's dangerous. In Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, New York Times bestseller, by the way, that taught me that you need to build a machine inside that container to do all this repetitive work for you. And at the core of his philosophy is this 80-20 rule. I don't think he made that up. I'm pretty sure he didn't, but it states that 80% of your results actually come from 20% of your efforts. So for us band leaders, that vital 20% is your marketing, your sales, your performing. That's it. That's what actually grows the business. The other 80%, the busy work like retyping emails, hunting for files, manually creating invoices, chasing people for availability, that's the stuff that keeps you busy but not actually productive. So the goal of the 4-hour gig week is to use a machine to obliterate that 80% of your busy work so you can pour all your energy into the 20% that matters. And by the way, those 2 books I mentioned are must reads for anyone wanting to grow their business without drowning in stress. So I put links to them in the description below if you want to go check them out. All right, so I said I was going to give my blueprint for the 4-hour gig week. So I promise we're going to dive deep and break all that down for you so that you can really start growing your band business the right way. But before we dive in, you need to see something that will truly make you understand the depth of your current problem. In one of my previous videos, I broke down the gig life cycle, which consists of 3 phases: booking, planning, and closing. And you did an audit, or should have done, of all the tasks at each one of those steps to see how long you're actually taking to book a gig today. Now, in case you missed that video, just click the link at the top of the screen somewhere now and go watch it. But if you're organizing your gigs like how I used to, which is manually and with a whole bunch of disconnected tools, you're likely spending 3 to 5 hours just to organize a single gig. And that totally sucks. I mean, no offense, but how much better could your life actually look with my system? Well, there's no better way to prove this system to you than to show you each step using a sample gig scenario. So what I'm going to do right now is play another video that shows you how Back on Stage actually works. It's about 8 minutes long, and spoiler alert, during that 8 minutes, you'll see what's probably taking you 3 to 5 hours to do right now, all condensed down into 8 minutes of real-time work. So prepare to be amazed. It does go by really fast, so buckle up. And after it's over, I'll show you how you can get all the time-saving templates that you're going to see in that video for free, so that no matter what tools you're using right now, you'll be able to start booking more gigs faster starting today. All right, here we go. It all starts here, where a potential client fills out my lead form, usually embedded right on my website. And the moment they hit submit, my system swings into action. Over here in Back on Stage, I get a notification, sure, but I don't have to do anything. My automated follow-up emails have already started sending on my behalf. No more chasing leads, just efficient nurturing. Over the next week, my client receives a few more of my automated emails and eventually responds to let me know that they're interested in booking my 9-piece band with sound system and lighting and a DJ for the after party. Now, to convert this booking, it's literally the click of a button. I quickly turn the lead into a booking, which instantly lets me add the rest of the services that the client requested. Before I can give them an accurate quote, I need to grab a few more details with the help of a questionnaire. And here's where we say goodbye to endless email chains. I'm just going to grab my Gather Details form. This form comes preloaded with everything I need to collect, like the client info, event information, and the schedule details. I simply hit save and share. I'll just send them a quick email using my Gather Event Details email template. It's that easy. A day later, client has answered it, and all those important details are now available right here inside my booking. No chasing for information, it just appears where I need it. Next up, my quote and contract. All I need to do is hit generate, and boom, my invoice is done for me. All I need to do is a quick double check of my rates. Maybe I'll add a 10% discount on here just to make my client extra happy. And my default 50% deposit settings are perfect, so I'll just hit save and close. Now for my contract, I pick my desired template, and thanks to smart tokens, all the client details, schedule information, and event specifics are automatically pulled in. No error-prone copy and pasting, it's all perfectly accurate every time. Now at the bottom, I just select that I need my client to sign this, and I choose my own admin signature, and I'm pretty much good to go. Once again, save and close. I'll now send the contract and invoice to my client using my send contract and invoice email template, quick and professional. Off it goes. This next part is where the real magic happens, booking my musicians. I'm just going to click edit next to my 9-piece band service. And I have a template set up for this, so with one click, my entire roster is built for me. Now, the system knows every role I need, my preferred call order for each position, and the individual pay rate for each musician. And before sending out offers, I can make a few tweaks. Now, I like to keep gigs even, and since I can see that my drummer Neil has only had 2 bookings, where Bernie has had 14 and Ginger has actually been booked for 7, I'm actually going to reorder this call list and give Neil the first call this time and save that as my default going forward. Oh, and my trumpet player, Freddie Hubbard, he's really good, and as such, his rate went up a little bit, so I can just quickly adjust that here to make sure it's accurate. And if somebody like Elvis, my male lead singer, is unavailable for this gig, I wonder why, I can just remove him like that. Happy with this list, I can just come down to the bottom and hit book roles, confirm everything looks good, and then fire away. My musicians immediately receive gig offer messages that clearly show all the gig details and include a link for them to accept or decline. All I have to do now is sit back and wait. I can go have date night with my wife without needing to check my phone every 5 minutes. Meanwhile, my client will be visiting their client portal to pay their deposit and sign their contract, and at the same time, the autobook system is busy reminding my musicians about the gig offer and following up until someone is booked for each role. No chasing musicians for availability, no chasing clients for payments or signatures. Fast forward to tomorrow, and here's my gig sheet, the central hub for everything related to this booking. In the admin area over here, I can see that my client has paid their deposit and signed their contract. And if I scroll down here to the band tab and head over to roles, look, we can see that all my musicians have been booked except for one last guy. We're in great shape. Back on stage will continue working for me, letting me know if it fails to book that last role. Next, it's time to collect song preferences, communicate dietary needs, and send a thank you to our officially booked client. I'll generate the song preferences questionnaire, which will let them choose ceremony songs, key moments, and even create must play and do not play lists. I hit save. And then, using my thanks for booking and next steps email template, I'll send it off. First, note the efficiency here. I'm thanking them for their booking and letting them know we're really excited to play their party. But I'm also sending them that song preferences questionnaire. And I'm also preemptively asking about food choices all in one go, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So let's send it off. Okay, now let's fast forward to a couple months before the event where it's now time to build the set list. Back inside the gig sheet, I can see that the client has answered their song preferences form, so I'm just going to take a quick peek at their must play and do not playlists, and they've only requested that we play I Want to Dance with Somebody. So armed with that information, I'm going to head over here to repertoire and start building a set list. Building set lists can be a massive time suck, but not anymore. As you can see here, I've got a template I can start from. I'll just duplicate this, then make small changes rather than starting from scratch. The builder has all of our best songs preloaded, and it even calculates the song count and set length for me. Since the client really wanted I Want to Dance with Somebody, I'm going to go ahead and move that up to the top of this set list so we're sure to get it in right at the beginning. And with that, I'm pretty much done. I'm just going to come down here and hit save. Now I just attach this set list to the booking, and just like that, I'm done. Now back on my gig sheet, my band can find the set list right here in the schedule. They can click to view it, and here in performance mode, they've got access to all the sheet music and reference recordings that I've made available to them, all in one easy to access place. How cool is that? I should let my team know that the set list is ready and send a final gig reminder, and that's easy via the band chat, which sends an email alert to everyone as soon as I post. Now at this point, all my musicians are booked, so I'm going to turn on autopay. And if automatically booking your musicians was cool, autopay is a dream come true. Check it out. Just head over to finances and bills, and from here, I can just select everyone I want to pay and hit enable autopay. The system does a little bit of math for me, telling me exactly how much I need in my bank account. All I do is check that and hit enable. And that's it. I set it and forget it. All my musicians will receive an automatic payout after the gig. No more chasing them for invoices, no processing payments manually. Now let's fast forward a few weeks before the event, and I'll check in with the venue for load-in details and power requirements. Since my client provided a venue contact via my questionnaire, I know exactly who to contact for this. I'll just copy their email and send my venue check-in template. Here I'm just inquiring about the load-in details, some technical requirements, and parking. Because I'm using that template, I'm not missing a thing. Now let's fast forward again to 1 week before the booking. I'm going to send one final follow-up email to my client, confirming all the details and politely reminding them of their outstanding balance. This template instantly pulls in all the schedule and event details, so no copying and pasting for me. I just hit send and I'm done. Now all this time, as the event details have been updated, my musicians have been able to log in and see everything in real time. This means I haven't needed to answer any of their usual gig questions because the system has done it for me. They even use the Google Calendar sync to see all their gig details inside their everyday calendar, almost eliminating the chance they'll ever forget anything. Almost. Alright, the gig's over, the band sounded great, and the client is happy. Back on my gig sheet, I can see that my client has fully paid their invoice, and they even left me a pretty sweet tip. Nice. Down in my finances here, AutoPay successfully sent payouts to all of my musicians, and all their invoices are right here. But the gig is not over yet. So many bands overlook this last critical step, post-gig follow-up. Every gig is an opportunity for another. Watch as I send this feedback questionnaire to our client. My survey asks for a rating and some feedback. Then we also ask them for a review, and we give them a little prompt to help them out in case they're needing some inspiration. But here's the most important part. It asks if they have any other upcoming events that could use live music, allowing them to select a follow-up date where we're essentially asking for the next gig right now, while they're still riding the high from working with us and haven't forgotten how incredible and impactful the band is. No more chasing future gigs, this system reminds me. So I'll just save that, and with the help of one last email template, I will send that off. And just like that, we're done. From the very first client inquiry to the post-gig follow-up, you've seen how Back on Stage automates the entire process, freeing you from the constant grind of administrative tasks. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. That was a lot of information, right? Seeing all those steps all at once, it can feel like you're staring up at a mountain, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed all over again. And that feeling right there is really the core of the problem, right? We as musicians look at this massive amount of work it takes to pull off a flawless event, and we try to tackle it all at once with 1,000 different tools, right? Our emails, our texts, our spreadsheets, Dropbox. It's a recipe for burnout. So my turning point came when I stopped looking at this as 50 different tasks and started seeing it as just 2 core relationships I needed to manage. So I have my relationship with my client and my relationship with my team. So I realized that if I could create a perfect, repeatable communication blueprint for each of those relationships, the mountain would shrink into a set of simple, manageable steps. So that's what I want to give you, the exact blueprints for both. So let's start with the client. In that demo, you saw the what, the tool in action. Now what I want to show you is the how, so the underlying process behind all that. So this right here is the visual blueprint for your entire client relationship. It's the step-by-step checklist that was happening behind the scenes in that demo. And you can see it all laid out, the 17 individual client email templates, from the first auto response to the final review request. You see those 4 different client form templates for gathering details, song preferences, and feedback. And it even includes the contract template that ties it all together. Now, if you want to grab all my email, form, and contract templates from this system for free, just click on the link for the automated Bandleader blueprint in the description below. One of the biggest and best giveaways I've ever done. Don't miss that. Now, let me show you how powerful this is by breaking down 3 of the biggest problems it solves. Now, what's the first most soul-crushing problem we all face? Chasing leads, at least for me, right? You get an inquiry, you reply, and then crickets. As you can see right here at the top of the blueprint, there can be a lot of steps before the client is actually ready to talk. So my aha moment was realizing that with wedding clients especially, a lack of response doesn't necessarily mean a lack of interest, right? They're just overwhelmed. I realized that by following up systematically, I wasn't being annoying, I was actually being helpful. Now, let me tell you, planning a wedding is like trying to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape. When my wife and I planned ours, every mention of wedding triggered immediate anxiety. It wasn't just juggling vendors, it was managing 2 families' expectations, opinions, food, timelines, traditions, everything, right? Take our flowers, for example. We found options immediately, but finalizing took months because we could only dedicate a few precious weekend hours to wedding planning after handling regular life responsibilities. And with that schedule, responding to vendors within a month kind of felt like a win. So remember, life doesn't pause for wedding planning or any kind of event planning for that matter. Your clients aren't necessarily ignoring you. They're drowning in decisions while still living their regular lives. So stay persistent, right? So I built a 7-email automated follow-up sequence, which you can see detailed right here on the map. And it's designed to be a gentle, helpful nudge that keeps me top of mind. This single system will dramatically increase your booking rate. Okay, so now you've booked the gig, the client has paid a big deposit, signed the contract, and now there are 3, 6, maybe even 12 months of silence until the actual event. This is what I like to call the buyer's remorse danger zone, all right? If communication drops, the client's confidence can start to wobble a little bit. I mean, they've just sent a huge chunk of money to the band they've possibly never even met in person, and they start wondering, are these guys legit? Did I make a mistake? And this silence makes your premium service feel merely transactional, which is not what you want. So my turning point with this came when I was planning my own wedding with my wife, and we hired a vendor who sounded amazing during our initial consult, and they made it seem like we'd be getting lots of communication and support leading up to the big day. But after we paid the deposit, that's not actually what happened. The communication basically stopped, and we got one brief meeting, but then we saw them on the wedding day and that was it. So we never felt nurtured during that process. And because we didn't really know what to expect, they completely lost the opportunity to wow us. And as a result, we didn't feel compelled to write them a glowing review. So lost opportunity for them, right? Now, they did the job we paid for, but that was it. And it was a huge aha moment for me about how I was running my own business. I realized that a great process isn't just for making my life easier, it's for making my clients' experience exceptional. And the secret is not only to have a great process, but to tell your clients what that process is right from the beginning. So the email and questionnaire system in the automated Bandleader blueprint is more than just a data gathering tool. It's a roadmap that you can share with your client. And when they see your professional step-by-step plan up front and then watch you execute it perfectly over the coming months, their confidence in you skyrockets. It allows you to not only deliver on your promises, but to strategically exceed them because the client knows exactly what the baseline is. So that is how you build trust that earns those incredible story-driven reviews. And let me know in the comments if you're having any aha moments of your own right now. Now let's jump to the end of the gig here, the closing phase on the blueprint. And what's our biggest fear here? Mine personally is getting a bad review that tanks my 5-star average. So I learned that feedback is a gift, but it doesn't always have to be a public gift. I needed a way to welcome criticism privately while encouraging praise publicly. And that's why my system uses this 2-step process seen here. So step 1 is a private feedback survey. And if they have any issues, they tell me directly. But if the feedback is glowing, and only then do I trigger step 2, an email with a direct link to Google asking them to share their praise. So once again, this entire client system is laid out for you in my free guide, the Automated Bandleader Blueprint. It contains every single template from this infographic, and it'll save you days of putting it all together on your own. The link is right at the top of the description below. Okay, but clients are only half the battle, right? Now let's look at the blueprint for your team. This one is a little simpler, but just as powerful. It's the visual list of all the steps you saw in the demo to keep your team informed and happy. It even includes 4 crucial musician email templates for gig offers and payout notifications. Now, when it comes to musician chaos, I have a story that I'm sure will sound familiar. Not that long ago, before I built these systems, there was a singer in my band, a very good friend of mine, who was notoriously bad at responding to my gig offers. I mean, really bad. Like, I would send out an email and not hear back for days. And then I would send a text and not hear back for more days. Sometimes it would take weeks for her to actually even just respond. Not only was this process incredibly stressful and annoying for me as the band leader, but it was also a flawed system for her. So my turning point came when I realized that my problem wasn't my singer. The problem was my process. There clearly wasn't enough incentive for her to actually respond quickly, and there was too much friction in the process. So I was making it hard for her to say yes and creating stress for both of us. So this is the exact problem that Autobook was built to solve. And as soon as I switched, that same singer became one of my first to respond to all my gig offers. Why? Well, it solved both problems at once, right? First, the system creates a healthy incentive, right? She's aware that it's a robot tracking the response now and that there's a time limit. If she doesn't respond in time, she knows the offer fairly and automatically moves on to the next person on the list. Second, it removes all the friction, right? All the gig details are so beautifully laid out in the offer email that she has all the information she needs, the pay, the schedule, the location, to make an informed decision in seconds. Now, this has been a huge win for me, and I'm sure her quality of life as a player has gone up as well. Okay, so now your musicians are booked. The next problem is what I call death by 1,000 questions, right? Even after they've said yes, your phone is constantly blowing up with repetitive questions at all hours. What's the dress code again? Can you send me the address? What time is the load in? You end up feeling less like a leader and more like a disorganized personal assistant, right? So my turning point came early in my band leadership journey. Band members would constantly lose my initial gig emails, and as each event approached, my phone would fill with repetitive text messages, right? Probably know the feeling. I realized I was the bottleneck, and by hoarding all this information, I was forcing my team to come to me for every detail. I wasn't empowering them, I was enabling their dependence on me, and it was draining my energy. So the lesson is you must create a single source of truth for every single gig. Now I'm back on stage. This is our beautiful gig sheet. It's a dedicated page for every event that houses every detail in real time, the venue, contact, the dress code, parking info, everything. Now, my team knows that before they text me, they check the gig sheet, and 99% of the time, the answer is already there. This simple habit has saved me hundreds of hours and has empowered my team to be more self-sufficient. Now for a story that's both hilarious in hindsight and absolutely mortifying to live through. This speaks to the importance of having a system that's a single source of truth and what happens when it breaks down. So a few years back, my band was asked to play at a wedding for a couple of our superfans. So these two had followed us for 7 years at a local bar that we used to play at, and we loved them. And for the first dance, they requested Sweet Caroline. Now, you have to understand, our band had managed to avoid playing that song for nearly 15 years. It just wasn't our vibe, but for these two fans on their wedding day, we couldn't say no. Now, my business partner managed to source the sheet music online, but since the song is so familiar, he didn't bother sourcing a single reference recording or double checking that all the different charts he found matched the same key. So instead of putting everything neatly into our system and back on stage, he sent out a flurry of emails with scattered details. And of course, because everyone knows the song, we didn't even bother running it in soundcheck. So we get on stage, the couple's beaming at us. I put my horn up to my lips. The drummer counts it in. And disaster. So the guitarist comes in with the first, right? You know the song, dun 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 dun. The bass player comes in. Bass player comes in a different key. Now, you know, sometimes those low frequencies, you can't really quite hear them when they're in the wrong room, in the wrong context or whatever. And I was like, oh man, I think I'm just hearing the wrong bass notes. This is weird. But then it's my turn to come in because I'm on the trumpet. And I come in on what I think is the right note, which is now a third different key. And it was a train wreck, right? An absolute wall of horrible, confusing sound. And the audience was just staring at us, like these baffled looks on their faces. You could tell people were kind of like, I think I know this song, but what's going on? And it was really weird. And there we were, trying to keep our game faces on, pretending this was some cool avant-garde jazz arrangement or something. Now, we're all pros, so we managed to find each other again and sync up somewhere in the first verse, but it was an embarrassingly painful way to start the night. So my turning point came kind of during that car ride home after that gig. We were all laughing about it, but underneath, all feeling a little bit embarrassed. And we knew we had let our superfans down in their biggest moment, right? So we realized the problem wasn't that we didn't know the song. The problem was that we had 10 different conflicting sources of information in that case. So our own flurry of emails and random charts had created that chaos, and we'd failed our own system. And so that's the lesson here, right? Your band's professionalism is only as strong as your system. So that night I made a pact. From then on, every single song we play must live inside Back on Stage, no exceptions. Each song file has the one official horn chart and the one definitive reference recording attached to it. And when I share a set list now, everyone gets the same correct versions. So it makes a great story now, but it's not a great story your band should have to tell. So don't do what we did and try to save a few seconds here and there by sidestepping your system. Make the commitment to use it no matter what, because as soon as you start to stray away from your single source of truth, you add unnecessary chaos that could end up being a lot worse than a single song in 3 different keys. So the entire musician blueprint, including the 2 essential musician email templates for gig offers and payout notifications, is also included in your free download of the automated Bandleader blueprint. So the same link in the description gets you the complete system for both your clients and your team. So there it is, a blueprint for your clients, a blueprint for your team. When you put these systems in place, you stop being the frantic juggler we talked about at the beginning of this video. You stop wasting 80% of your energy on busy work, and you finally get to focus on the 20% that matters, playing amazing shows and growing your business. You finally become the architect of your business and your life. Now, if you've been feeling overwhelmed and are starting to question if running a band business is even worth the stress, I hope you now see that it's not you, and instead it's just your lack of a system. Building this system is the only way to avoid burnout and actually make a living that you enjoy with your music. But speaking of burnout, I almost quit my own music career when I hit a wall. And if you want to see my personal story of what I learned that stopped me from giving up and instead turn my band into a 6-figure business, then go watch this video next where I go deep into the pains of professional band leaders that you need to fix if you ever want to succeed.